All right, so Azure. They cleaned up a lot of stuff for PDC and kind of got it more friendly for most people. That being said, the disclaimer is we are not Azure experts, but we will entertain questions, mainly is what this is about.
Yeah,
so
I've done this exactly one time. So
I've done it correctly exactly about half the time.
Their interface is completely different.
Yeah. So we'll take you through from the Visual Studio side, I think, first, just to get one started, and then show you the new interface. From here, not a lot has changed from the last one. You're going to do a new project, an Azure project. That's just under cloud. And from there, it's going to prompt you to, like, what do you want it to be? Do you want it to be ASP.NET, MVC, a WCF service, worker role, or a CGI role, or do you want to do weird stuff?
You're adding this to an existing solution, right?
No, this is a new solution.
Okay,
So you can add however many you want of whatever you want. So I could add, you know, a WCF role and a worker role and an MVC role. We can delete all those, whatnot. For now, we like MVC, so we're gonna do a demo MVC role. So this is just gonna create the stock MVC template. We don't like tests. And it's gonna associate that role with my Azure project. And that's basically to keep track of where you're deploying it to and stuff like that. So
the Solution Explorer?
Yeah, solution. So this is your website, same as everything.
There's nothing special about the website at all.
Well,
you could have created the website first,
yeah,
and then created the role.
Yeah, and then in your Azure project here, you've got your roles, which you can add. You know, add a new one or add an existing website to that. And then each of your roles will be listed out under here. So if I wanted to, say, add a new worker role, whatever, call it that, it would also be listed under there. But we don't want that. And so what this project, this Azure project, it keeps track of like these generated files, the service configuration and definition, and those have a bunch of properties in there. So when you double click a role, you'll come in here and tell it, you know, what trust you want to run at, how many instances do you want. So if I wanted to run 20 instances of a certain size, you can do that, yeah.
Is that the instance we talked about, like, we're being charged on?
Mm-hmm.
You get 750 hours per month. That's how many you're choosing there.
Yeah, and right. So if you had like 4 web instances, it would be 4 clones running the same site, and the load balancer would tell it which one to go to.
Like with that current MSDN deal, you get 750 hours, basically a month free if you had one instance.
Yeah.
NG.com must have multiple instances.
We have one instance. Because we're not seeing a lot of traffic, yeah.
So what?
So actually, it recommends to us, or it gives us a warning that we're only running one instance and we don't have any.
Because you don't get the SLA with one instance.
Yeah, you don't have any guaranteed uptime if you only have one instance.
Right. That's why I'm curious what maybe a better time for this.
Yeah. There's also this nice enable diagnostics thing. And that's to put on like logging and tracing, monitoring, tracing, and that you can use a storage account, which I guess I'll have to pull out here. Well, we don't have to. We won't enable it for now, but that's a lot easier than it used to be last time. Last time you had to do a bunch of code. You had to do like 12 or 15 lines of code just to get that. Now it's free. You got just your basic like app settings, like configuration settings. You've got endpoints, so if you wanted to run it on a different port, if you wanted to run it HTTPS, TCP, whatever you want, you can do that. You can configure local storage. It can use basically like a disk. You can have certificates, which I'm trying to think. I'm not going to put any on there now, but you can upload them on there. And then this I haven't messed with at all. It's Windows Azure Connect. It's a beta, and it's basically what we did with the SharePoint stuff in some form, and I'm not sure. It's to connect local computers to your Azure instance. There's some sort of like tunneling. I think it actually is App Fabric, but it's just a checkbox instead of all the stuff we wrote. Which is cool.
Jump back to the settings real quick. You can't change your entire project, your web project gets compiled into one. I don't know. I don't want to say DLL, but it's one package essentially. And so you can't change the web.config file between your staging and production deployment. So this is where if you want to change configuration settings, you have to do it in here, not in your web config.
Yeah, and so if something's running, yeah, and if you wanted to change things while it's running without redeploying, this is where you would probably do it.
You can still use your web config if you want, but you won't be able to change anything in it.
So is this,
redeploying.
so is this like having an external configuration file?
Yeah,
Or-
that you can change from the portal or something like that.
Is this actually like accessible through app settings, like configuration manager app settings?
Yeah, you don't use configuration manager, it's different.
It's a different
Class.
Okay.
The
The
one-
reference in the share.
Oh.
Yellow.
The one thing that does change is you get this web roll file that is something falling down.
The clock's way off.
Oh, okay. That's just it. You get this web roll file which has just basically like an on start, and that will actually run when the roll is starting up. So that's where you can do a lot of your configuration changes and settings. And then it'll also be like worker roll if you didn't have a website. So it's kind of like on start. It's kind of like a main-ish thing. And that'll get run anytime it's started. You can also put in things in here like if my configuration ever changes, what to do. So there's like event handlers for that. There's event handlers for like if a role is restarted or something like that. So that's where a lot of your configuration changes.
Do we have this here in lieu of putting something in the global.asax so that it is?
Well, this is when the actual role starts up. So this has nothing really to do with the website. It can, but so this is if you wanted to set up, some.
What were we doing in here?
In here we were doing.
We were doing something. in here.
We're setting up storage containers for to get to our
Images.
videos and images. There's probably better ways to do that.
Okay.
But a lot of this is for configuration and setup of a role.
I suppose I can click on that link and figure out.
Yeah, I suppose you could. But for now, we'll go ahead and tell it to publish, hopefully. And that's all you do is you right-click there and publish. You can either create a service package, which just creates, basically like Adam said, that zip file. It has everything in there, or you can just tell it to deploy it directly. You set up these credentials, which I think Niebert would say it's not too bad. Chad, you've done it too.
Where are these set up at though?
You just
Is there some master set on your computer that stores this?
So how the credentials work is it's tied to your live account, and then it's also, you need a management certificate. So, for example, Paul made me and Adam co-administrators, and we have this certificate, or we each have our own certificate probably. And so as long as you have those two things, your live account and your certificate, you have access to these. Is that?
I guess so. This collection is somewhere outside of Visual Studio.
Yeah. So basically, it's actually just a certificate. Now that I
Okay.
think of it. So it's a certificate, and then your subscription ID, and that's it.
Okay.
And it tells you how to create that the first time. But we just have an NG one,
Okay.
and so this will load up all our different. These are our actual. This is our NG website. This is our staging for website, mobile, etc. I've got some running in my test one. I'm gonna put it in staging. It has to deploy through a storage account. You can't upload directly to an Azure instance because that doesn't exist yet. So you have to deploy it through a storage account. So you put your package in the storage account, and then when the role, that's what it uses to image that new role. And that never made sense to me until I thought, well, you can't upload it because the server hasn't been provisioned yet. Which kind of makes sense. And that way you can do, you can spin up 10 servers at once, and it's going to be the same amount of time.
And a deployment environment can have any number of websites, web roles.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. You can enable IntelliTrace here. You can only do this from Visual Studio. You can't do this from the portal because this is a Visual Studio 2010 feature only. And then you can also, awesome, configure remote desktop. And so you can say, enable connection. I'm going to add a certificate. You select it. It has to be uploaded. And then you give it a username. You give it a password. It's got a fairly strict password policy, and when that account expires. You can do this all after you deploy too, though. So we're gonna deploy this because it still takes about 8 or 9 minutes to deploy the first one. But we'll show you the. And it'll give you good feedback as to what's going on. But we'll show you the portal right now because it's got to upload it to storage, create the role, like configure the role, start it, and like basically start up the machine, start up IAS, etc., etc.
How do you reference, are you going to get to database stuff?
We can.
How do you reference databases within your Azure project?
An Azure database?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's,
Or any database.
so let's think I'm developing a database. I want to, maybe I'll use SQL Server Express locally while I'm doing this thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to deploy to an Azure database.
That's
right?
part of that configuration
Yeah.
settings. In that Azure configuration file is where you can specify connection strings.
So in here, a good way to do it, yeah, is to do like Doug string or something, and you can say that's a connection string,
Okay.
and you can either have it point to like a storage account, or you can just have it be a string that's like a SQL connection string.
So that's when I'm
Yeah.
connecting to my local, when I'm running locally. I have two of them. One's a production connection string. One's
Yeah,
a,
and I mean the correct way to do that would probably be to have a different web config and have a different configuration. Like that's how we've been doing it.
For Azure, for
Yeah.
production.
Like we have an Azure, like a production configuration would point to our Azure database via this web.azure.config.
okay. And
When
so
you
the,
deploy, you choose the
Yeah.
configuration.
Yeah, you choose whichever your configuration you're in. That's what's going to get transformed and packaged.
so I can do build events and everything to copy connection.
Yeah.
Okay. Then can I use a database project here to
Yep.
define all my database stuff and have, I can then deploy that to my SQL Server or SQL Express instance on my local machine when I'm doing debug. And can I deploy to an Azure database?
Yeah. Yep.
Have you guys been doing that?
We were with careers.
Does that work pretty good?
Yeah. I mean the Azure database is super simplistic. It's just a SQL database. Like you don't really know anything else. I mean you have this is your name and you have a set of credentials. And you can do it through SQL Management Studio, you can do it through anything.
Okay.
So, but the shiny part is in here, other than the fact that I'm under the impression that most people don't think in trees like programmers do. This is much better than the old interface, I think, but it's still got a ways to go. You can see the kind of the status of all of your sites. So at the highest level, you have like a subscription, which we have Nebraska Global, which Paul has the billing info for, but we're all administrators for. Me and Paul. And underneath that, you can create these services. So, for example, Adam's got mobile and web for Nebraska Global with a staging and a production. So you can see here, like, here's staging, here's production, here's your URL for that. So if we actually go, so that's, we CNAME that, but.
This is what we have our CNAMEs set to for our real DNSs.
Go back to the staging.
Your staging one will always be a random width, basically,
And that'll change every time you
Change.
deploy to staging.
every time.
Okay.
But to switch between these two, you click that, and it takes about less than 60 seconds, and you'll never notice any blips.
So, yeah,
Oh,
so
is
what
that
we do
just-
is we
is that-
deploy to staging from Visual Studio, then we take a look at it on staging, and then we just click that swap bit button,
Yeah,
and
That's-
it'll swap them around. And if you see some bugs, then you can swap them back.
yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
Mhm.
Has it always worked that way?
yeah.
So
you never
somehow
have
I
one
got
of
the
those
impression you
books
were
that you
actually
need to get
it was
back.
actually physically moving from staging to production.
No,
yeah,
it
the
just
only
swaps
hooks you
the
have
IP
is if
address.
you
I
deploy
like
to staging again,
Then you lose production.
then you lose your old production.
Yeah.
There's, I think the only difference between the staging and production is that, like, the load balancer is a little bit different. But I'd have to verify that.
Did you just swap them there?
No.
Oh.
Did I? I don't think so. I'll swap
Yeah.
this one when it gets going.
I think you.
No, I didn't click it.
Oh, NG Web was.
Yeah. So this is the one I just did. It's still deploying. It's initializing right now. So inside of each service right here, so like NG Web or NG Mobile, you have your two production and staging. These are the roles. So if I had like a WCF role and a worker role and this is that MVC role, like they would all list up here. Then underneath them is each individual instance. So if I had 10 different instances, they would all be initializing right now, and it would be a big clustered tree. But since I only have one, it looks a little bit nicer.
So does it, that worker role there looks like it's got a little globe, so that's a web role versus a service?
That'd be
No,
a
this
Windows
is-
service,
I
right?
can't
This is
see.
just a Windows service.
Oh, okay. What is that? Is
Um,
that how I'm supposed to discern between a web role and a?
I think web. Well, I don't know. It looks like it uses the same icon, but you can
Is there in the properties, does it say? Yeah, type.
type as role. I think that's gonna be the same. Yeah.
That's weird. Okay.
You can tell when you create it. It's a lot easier to tell.
Yeah,
in
you can't
Visual
tell the
Studio.
difference between a web app and a Windows service or
Okay, that's
that's
fine.
kind of weird. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, that is kind of strange. I mean, you can tell in the solution. Like, obviously, this is just a worker role, and in here, I mean, here's what it looks like. It's got a run and an on start.
Right,
And it just,
I just visually within there, I was trying to.
yeah.
I'm
that's
envisioning
kinda strange.
some application that's got just, well, we'd name them
If you
probably.
click down to the instance,
Yeah. Or a one that's running.
Nope.
As a matter of fact, it calls it worker role.
Mhm.
That's fine.
Well, this is the one I
That's
deployed.
the
Oh, that is a worker
This
role.
is a worker role. It's just the name of it.
Okay. that's fine.
So it's got all your Windows started, size, status. This update domain, if you would have multiple roles, which is why they recommend it actually, when you push an update, like you update a deployment, you can tell it to only update specific roles. And so you can kind of, that's one way. I see it in the future being like kind of A/B testing. If we have like 10 instances of something running, 10 instances of something running, and we want to push like something that we think is going to be fixed to one of those, we can do that. While it's updating, no traffic will get routed there. When it's done updating, traffic will get routed there. We can set like configuration and diagnostics on that role and kind of see, 1 out of 10 people is going to hit that. What are we seeing as far as important metrics to us? I think that'll be really important.
So do we have more than one instances on our NG Web or anything like that, or is it just?
Nope, not right now.
Okay,
We can up one.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to see what.
To do that, I think you can. Not in here. I'll show you another way you can up the instances really easy.
So just so I'm clear, I could deploy different. I could have multiple versions of this site or multiple configurations that could be distributed across the different
Yeah.
instances. Okay.
It would get complicated, but yeah.
Okay.
And in order to do the VIP swap, to swap production and staging, you just have to have endpoints that are the same. So I could even swap out, a mobile site for a normal site as long as it's on the same port. GANs.
Do you have control over, like, a lot of update scenarios? Especially if I had a worker role tied to a web role.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
You
there
can
might be
upgrade
situ-
you can just upgrade
on
one.
one or the other. There
Yeah.
might be a situation where I literally do need to shut them down.
So that's right
Um,
here.
Can you control the
Yep.
the process?
So if I had another role here, that's why this upgrade's here. Like you can upgrade the whole entire service
Mhm.
instance or the service. What's the name?
Project.
Yeah, the entire project.
Okay.
Or you can do it on individual roles.
Yeah.
And when you do that on individual roles, you can tell it to do it on individual instances.
Okay, because I can see if they're truly dependent, like I can't start that worker role before the
Yeah.
new web role has been deployed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if there is a dependency there, how does queuing work in between those? So let's say you had a worker role and a web role. Maybe this isn't part of your discussion, but and the web role was using a queuing mechanism to communicate with a worker role. I'm assuming the queuing is independent of.
Well, yeah. I mean, you'd queue to. I mean, if you did it right, you'd queue, and another web worker role could pick it up, right?
Queuing through the
Right.
storage, right?
Yeah, there's
Is that
queuing.
what is storage?
There's queuing through the storage. Yeah.
Queuing through the storage.
Queuing, blob storage, and table storage are all separate.
Okay.
That's the storage count. That's right here.
Okay.
And so this is all separate, and you get a place for that. that and that. I'll show you that in a second.
Oh, you can't use the word global in any of your names, so that's why it's Nebraska G instead of Nebraska Global.
You can't use what?
The word global.
Oh,
It's a
really?
reserved.
Fishing.
It's a reserved name. word.
I contacted him about that, actually, filed a ticket on that.
Right.
Yeah, and I forgot to tell you. So, a cool thing though is any of these instances of any of these roles that you have configured, you click this button, it downloads .rdp, you click open, give it your secret password, which actually is pretty secret. And
And this is brand new.
this is brand spanking new. This has been promised, and I'm very happy that it actually works. And here you are.
That's awesome.
You're RDP'd into your Azure instance. And the cool thing is, it has a floppy disk drive.
Eject.
Yeah.
Which is what you you just think it's cool?
Yeah.
Some kind of data set. We want to watch
Yeah.
all these flops flying out of the.
He also filed a ticket to have someone insert some more.
Yeah, I need to get Doom on my
It looks
Azure
like my
instance.
numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. But the nice thing is here, you can go in and mess with your, your connection strings. But the thing is, if you do this, I mean, you're shooting yourself in the foot because any change, any update, you're gonna get zonked. We are looking into. They do have in here. It's a beta feature right now, but they're doing where you can like upload VM images. Yeah, we don't have it enabled right now, but I think my understanding of what it could be, and I guess we can read it. You can upload a custom VHD and run it in Azure. I think it'd be really nice if you could pull down a VHD of your current running instance, and like if you tweaked it through remote desktop, and then could like grab that and then push it out. That would be cool. But who am I? So that I think Paul's going to probably be looking into that because I don't know.
What's a way to get that MC into things easily or
Yeah.
whatever?
So what we can do a swap here. No, we can't. I don't think so because they're gonna have different endpoints. Well, we can see.
Swap the bits.
So this is just gonna swap those.
Is that really their message?
Yeah.
Swap the bits.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
push the
weird.
bits. But this will only take a little while. Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't think it could. I don't. This one has a port 80 and this one doesn't have a port, so that doesn't like that, obviously. So that's kind of the Azure overview. I'm going to go over diagnostics quick, logging, and the Azure MMC plugin.
I just can't believe how much better this is than what they had
Yeah.
before.
It's just like
One more thing. The Azure default images don't include everything that's probably installed on your machine. So like the DLL for MVC, you have to tell it to copy that. I'm guessing Nate's deployment that he just did would not have worked because of the
I think so.
no. Well, that's what I was just reading a little bit ago.
I think so. The MVC stuff was working for him before. But yeah, he's right about that.
So if you reference a local DLL, you have to set the properties on it to copy local equals
Mhm.
true. So
And
that it'll
even-
get carried along when you deploy it.
And even some things that you would think would be installed on there, like the Azure, the data storage, like the blob storage, we had to copy local those. Like that's not even in the GAC on, or wherever it would be on the remote machine.
The frame, everything that's in the framework is there, right? But MVC is not in the framework yet? Or is that,
I
is
think
my first
MVC is
assertion
there.
even wrong?
So if you had to install something, you'd be screwed.
Well,
You can't just locally copy.
there's
It
people.
depends, I guess, on how the installation.
There's people that are doing it. They're basically pointing their machines to like a install script that they include in the website,
Okay.
and like packaging up the DLLs that way.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. I've never run into any problems
MVC's not
with
part
it.
of the framework?
MVC just worked.
It's
Well, like we ran into that
Or
integration
enterprise
thing
library
with Windows
site.
Identity.
But it's always-
That was an installer.
Yeah, it might have done that. See, Adam might be right. It might have done that for me.
I mean, I think that is.
Go to your
Because it was
bin.
still
Oops,
just
wrong.
running for a single DLL.
Yeah. Well, that is probably a bad example. But
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what it might have done that for me.
Can't
is
do
what
something
I'm
that was making
worried
registry
about.
entries or.
Yeah, so it did that for me when I created it this way. But yeah, you'd have to run the copy local true for MVC. But
Okay.
you're gonna run into that anyways.
Does it do that for all the elements too?
I don't know.
All right, move on to
Yeah,
diagnostics.
we'll come back. So this is the MMC app. This was released a long time ago. It seems like months ago. I would hope they're gonna refresh it, but it mostly works from here on with the new stuff. So here you've got like your service management, same thing, subscription ID, certificate. You're in, good to go. It'll list all your hosted services. So here's my test stuff. Hopefully I didn't forget who I was. Staging, production, etc. Here's my 2 roles. This role, that's that. I forgot I had that in there. That was that configuration setting. So like, let's say like a connection string or something. You could actually go in here. Maybe. I think you should be able to change that. Save configuration. Maybe not. Oh, there we go. So if I wanted to change that, like if I wanted to point it to a new URL or something, do that, hit save configuration, it would save that. So there's more interesting things in this one because it has remote desktop turned on. So it's got like the username and my encrypted password. Good luck. And then different certificates. But for diagnostics, and I'll just show you on the Nebraska Global site because it's actually running. Under this diagnostics thing is kind of that stuff that we said. This is a bug, but it doesn't hurt you. That stuff that we said in the like web role start stuff. You'd set the diagnostics. Well, this is a way to do it with the UI. So you specify what role you're talking about. You can do it on a per instance basis or for all instances. You basically got checkboxes here, and you say, okay, I want my file logs, I want my event logs for system and app, and I want performance counters every 30 seconds, take total processor time, take requests per second, etc., etc. And you can tell it when to transfer. Right now we have them specified for 15 minutes each, but there's like a global transfer period you could set, or you can just transfer on demand.
Transfer where?
So that's another thing that's kind of different way to think about this. It actually transfers all that information, so like your logs and your events and stuff, transfer them into storage, so you can view them from there.
Okay. Did you pay for that storage?
No, that's part of your service. Well, you get one.
I think yeah.
I think you have to.
Be a lot in there. So.
Yeah.
So you're saying like event logs every 15 minutes it get dumped into the storage?
It pushes them into storage, yeah.
'Cause I remember we were struggling a lot with
And I
that.
think that's just to keep the load off of the actual instances, would be my guess. I don't know. People probably have a better idea.
Well, the instance gets moved, it gets lost, right?
Yeah.
So just having that.
And so, yeah, or your instance crashes. I mean, or you can't access it or something.
Yeah, if local storage is lost, it is.
Yeah. So, in here then is this analysis, and this is actually going through and like scraping the storage account for all this stuff. So if we want from 90 minutes from now, yeah. If we want all logs over warning, I'm gonna put a warning because there's a ton of information ones that are showing up. Because one of the bugs in Azure right now is it tries to do Windows activation, which is kind of silly. So that shows up as a warning like every 15 minutes. So right now, we're going to pull down all the stuff for the last 90 minutes. We shouldn't have too much. Performance counters obviously is going to be fairly predictable. And this is actually I think it's a MEF plugin that you can just feed this data into whatever. They have a default one that just says, hey, open it as CSV in Excel, which turns out works pretty well. And then you get stuff as pretty as you would expect it in Excel. And this is going to tell you whatever you ask for. So this is all the performance indicators right now. This is bits in and out, processor time, and requests per second. So we're not getting the DD list right now. But
Yeah, getting what?
we're not getting denial of service right now, is what I can tell from this.
So, if I wanted something to watch the event log on one of these instances and wanted to alert us that, I would have to have the event log data pushed to storage, and then I have to have something that is checking for storage for new event log and parsing it, and then notifying me? Because you were saying, if I put something on the instance itself, which,
Well,
Then I
you could
can-
have the instance itself notify you.
Send an email.
Yeah, you could have it send an email or something.
Is
by
it-
putting my own,
If you use Microsoft application blocks logging, you could have it send an email if it was an error.
let's say it's something watching, yeah,
Right.
but let's just say it's watching the Windows event log.
Event
But
log.
somebody-
Scon's gonna
but
be-
something-
Well, yeah. Well,
You
and
can
then
still do it.
if you just had a
worker?
role,
Yeah.
that
I'd have
would
to have
watch
a worker rule that sat there and watched
the
the
event. It could either watch the event log if it was on that instance, or if you had one worker log role that was watching
storage.
storage.
Right,
for
that's what I was
every
saying,
role
that's what I was
as
basically saying,
well.
I'd have to have something rather than actually just watching the event logs
Mhm.
directly on the instances.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
Well, you
Yes,
could
yes,
do it either.
that's
You could
calm.
do that.
Packed,
But I thought if I put anything on there, I'm not guaranteed to, are they,
If you have a worker running on the instance,
I'd have to do it via a worker role.
Yes. It could.
And it would have access to that particular instance's event log, let's say, or the storage's accumulation of all your all your instances. I don't know. Those are interesting little things.
Yeah.
Here's what the
Seems kinda cool.
blob containers look like. They're empty right now, but this is that deployment container, so it pushes out that package and grabs it from here. It's also like a controller container. The queues, these are the transfers, so if you were to transfer all over your logs, it would go through the queue to get there. And then tables is actually where it stores all this stuff. So let's see, performance. These are also plugins, so we could plug our own, whatever we wanted in here, graphing or whatnot.
Oh, so I could have something, sit there and watch the database table too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a table. It's not a database, but yeah.
But I can effectively query it like a
Yeah.
table.
Yeah. And that's what some of the cool stuff that's being done now is like auto scaling, where they'll watch the performance, like the processor percentage or something like that, and if it gets over a certain threshold, they'll just spin up a new instance. Because anything you can do in here, you can do in code. So, like, let's say this snake test, let's say we really need this MVC site, we need another worker, or we need 5 other workers. Click increase worker, it's going to start spinning up another one here in a second. We should be able to watch that on the IE thing too. Yeah, it didn't work. We'll let it go. Any other questions while we're waiting for that?
Go back.
But you're saying it will auto scale. When you say
It
auto
won't.
scale,
I mean,
okay.
you could write.
write
Write. There's a MSDN article that tells you how to write the program to do that. It's not actually too bad. Probably 50 lines. And you just run it as a web role somewhere, and it can just monitor everything. Let's see here. Oops. So yeah, this one is updating that second one. It's going to add another instance, I think. Hopefully, maybe it killed it. So here the first instance is still running, but it's gonna. You see it here. It's putting that another one in. So. Which is the way you're supposed to do it, not just randomly destroy everything all the time, which is our usual approach. I don't know. What other questions?
Each of those NG services have a single instance. Is that how that is?
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out why we're getting billed so much. At least 3 instances we're getting billed for. There's 2.
Well,
Staging.
we got staging running too, so we can shut those down.
How do you do that?
How do you shut it
Or
down?
how do you use it? No.
These are staging, red and glare there for me. Staging and then production, and you can just hit stop, and then you have to delete it too.
What can you do in configure OS?
That's to set it on a different version. I believe.
Which right now you have.
Yeah. Right now it's running the latest. They were pretty good. I think they missed 1 month, but they release a new version of OS every month.
So you get charged on each instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. So we can shut down the staging, certainly for the mobile.
You don't get charged by role. It doesn't care what the role is, right? You just care about.
No. Well, each role has an
Well.
instance, though.
Right.
Each role
I'm
has
saying
to
the
have
difference
at
between a
least
web role and a
one. No, it
worker
doesn't
role.
care. And so the nice thing is, too, they came out with that extra small instance, which counts as like half of a small instance. Which
And
is
how,
good.
what do they mean by that? How are they defining the magnitude of an instance?
It's approximate processing power and memory power.
So it has nothing to do with its run, how many hours it's running in a month. It just matters.
If it's
How many
if
real-
it's here, if it's created, it's billing, even if it's stopped. So this is NG mobile staging, right? So
Right.
if we stop it, it's still getting billed. You have to delete it to not get billed,
Oh, really?
You do delete it, not get billed.
because you're still occupying that space because you could spin it up.
Sure.
But how do they do about the hours of instance computing? What is the billing related
You
to?
charge, if it's up, it's you recharge every hour, no matter what.
Okay, you're getting charged some baseline for having it there, but you're also
No.
getting charged on
You're getting charged an hour every time every hour that's in there. You're getting charged the hour,
regardless of whether it's running
Whether
or
it's
not.
maxed out or not.
as
you
long as
charge
it's
that.
there. Yeah.
Really?
So you have to
Right,
delete
that's
it.
right, whether you're
Yeah.
maxing it or not, you're getting charged a second.
So, like,
you're
if-
charged on the data transfer and storage around that.
But like if Pixar is doing something like that, it would be paying, let's say $1 an hour for its first instance. It needs to do 10 instances. It brings them up for 2 hours, gets charged $20, shuts them down.
That just shuts them down, deletes
Well, it
them.
deletes the instances. The role still exists.
Right.
So Pixar.com or whatever still exists. It's just you only got one server running that now instead of 10.
It's a shame you have to delete it. It's a shame you can't just turn them on and off.
Yeah, that's what you pay for being
I
able
guess
to turn
how
it
they-
on.
How they allocate that on the back end.
Reserves.
They haven't got enough overhead to.
What's the price?
It's half of it. It's like
35.
yeah, it's like 7 cents an hour.
So why would you stop an instance? Is that just you don't want to delete it, but you don't want
Yeah.
traffic going to it?
Yeah.
So maybe you'd stop it and I don't know, do a deploy to it or something like that? Or?
Yeah, I don't know.
How much did you say it was?
I want to say 7 cents an hour. We can look that up.
The billing page isn't very detailed.
This one's good. So,
This is the one I thought that we more.
comparison table is the one you want.
Oh, that's right.
So, we've got MSDN somewhere. So it's 5 cents an hour for extra small, 12 cents an hour for small. Your storage, you're gonna pay 15 cents per gig stored per month, and 10,000 per transaction. Which, if you're running IntelliTrace and a ton of logging stuff, you'll hit that. It's only a penny, but we hit like 10 million transactions one month, or maybe not 10 million. At least 1 million transactions 1 month though. It was like $1. So, but that surprised me, but it happened. So if it can happen to us, you can enable the CDN if you want it. You don't need to. They'll start charging for the Azure Connect, whatever that is. So
Hey Doug, is it our intention to use Azure for every project that needs a website or web interface instead of a traditionally hosted site?
Yeah, I think we want
if
to use
it's
this
gonna be
as much
public
as
facing, I would say.
yeah.
We don't want Kevin Paul to keep a server up and running here.
Yeah.
As soon as you have two
Right. If we have to choose
Didn't
between,
even
we have to
say
choose
that every time
between
to do
putting a
that.
server in Rackspace or hosting on Azure, I think we'd vote for Azure. I think it just
And this as long as you have 2 instances, you got
Serving up.
Sure, I stopped getting coffee from mail, I know that.
you got 99.95 uptime guaranteed with their SLA
If you have 2 instances.
if you have 2 instances. So that's they kind of get you. But at least now they're warning you about that. Before it was just, I didn't have any idea. So.
well, you can do you can set some, eventually you'll have a lot, even more control over this, but you can set some affinity in terms of
Yeah,
geographic region.
yeah.
So imagine Accelerate when we had, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 stores, we could have had them situated, even though there are 6 instances, it could have been, this was in their East Coast data center, this was in their Southern.
And that's where you can hit the CDN can help you too, I think.
Well, is that right? I think
You
you
would
get
have-
charged.
it's hard to imagine doing Accelerate though in
Yeah.
Azure, but you would just have to rethink a lot of things, I think. Mostly because of the database costs.
And so whenever you
we were
create,
barely paying $100 a month for some of those.
1-800 host.
Some of
Yeah,
those
I
sites.
know that.
Right now, it's not. It's costing us a little more.
Mhm. And each time you create like a database or a instance, like you tell it where it geographically needs to be, and then you can also have affinity groups. So if they don't exactly match.
Did I see somewhere transfer rates are different if you're within a region or something? You were saying-
Somebody mentioned that.
I think, wasn't Asia more expensive?
Yeah, I mean, here's
Asia's always
So I
been
mean,
more
it's where you're
expensive.
transferring data to, if it's.
Like, could be an order of magnitude
I
more
don't-
expensive than Asia.
I don't think it's
Ridiculous.
price. I think it's probably performance. But I don't know. I know what you're
Users hitting
saying.
an East Coast, the East Coast users hitting an East Coast server is a different rate. Maybe I'm quite wrong, but meaning have your servers where your users are, if possible. But
Yeah, because you pay for
Yeah.
and not just like Europe
Without-
versus Asia, more like that's one way.
Do you remember some of the difference in costs in Asia?
Australia was the worst.
I thought like Singapore and some of those are just
We
ridiculous.
learned out of Singapore, but Australia was bad.
They were crazy. This is from internet. It was like 10 times more expensive. It was ridiculous.
Mumbai was bad too.
It's like they don't have the internet.
Anywho, that's all we got. There's SQL reporting and stuff too, but I haven't got any.
Very good.
That's good.
Thanks, Nate.
We don't really know much more, but we know different things now.
That was good.
It'll be nice to when we get like DPL up there, where we do have the careers website.
Mhm.
I imagine we're probably gonna have a worker
Database.
role related to
Yeah.
that with a database. There'll be some queuing.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to kind of revisit this and see what it looks like with that as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, I mean, it's a step in the right direction
Man,
as far as that UI.
Yeah, I haven't been in that UI in probably
It looks
a couple of years.
confusing
Or a year,
at
at least a year. Man, it looks so much better.
So DPL's not being charged, but you actually deleted that.
Yeah, they're all deleted.
There's no DPL website up right now.
So you just have the what is that DPL thing there? That's called.
Oh,
something
that's
else?
just an empty. It's. I just have it mainly for the name. So this doesn't have anything deployed to it, but it does have don't panic labs. Just because it's our name. It doesn't cost me anything to have this run here because there's no. I just basically hold on. to
There's
it.
no deployments. It's the deployments. Once you have a deployment, could you actually delete? If I delete just the instances from a deployment, do I still get charged or?
No. Then you stop getting charged for that instance.
Okay, so I could leave. Would there be any advantage to leaving the deployment there? You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't think so. That's why I'm gonna kill these right now.
So did this presentation just cost us like 15 cents?
Nah, it's
A tenth of what the sandwiches
so.
cost.
Yeah, that's what else sucks. I need to get it deleted by
Yeah.
101 because if you run it from 12:58 to 102, that's 2 hours.
There's no.
It's clock hours. Like it's if you run it in that hour, you get charged for that hour.
Yeah.
They get you coming and going. But you know they gotta make money.
Software.